I came home to silence that screamed louder than any argument we'd ever had. The front door swung open on hinges that no longer creaked from years of neglect, revealing a void where my life once stood. Furniture gone, walls stripped bare, even the faded wedding photo on the mantel ripped away, leaving a dusty outline like a ghost's scar. My secret trip, that stolen weekend with Mark, the man who made my heart race without the weight of resentment, had been my escape from the rotting marriage to David. I'd blocked him on everything, phone, socials, email, just to breathe without his paranoia clawing at me. But this was his answer, a calculated annihilation. He'd hired movers, drained our joint accounts, and vanished, leaving me with nothing but the echo of my own footsteps in an empty shell of a home. Humiliation burned in my chest like acid, betrayal twisting the knife deeper. How dare he erase me like I was yesterday's trash? In that hollow moment, staring at the naked floorboards, I vowed he would pay, not with words or lawyers, with everything he held dear. The first weeks blurred into a haze of fury that settled into my bones like a chronic ache. I crashed at my sister Lena's cramped apartment, her pitying glances slicing deeper than David's theft. "He's always been a snake," she'd say, handing me black coffee that tasted like regret. But her words couldn't touch the venom coursing through me. Every night, I'd lie awake on her lumpy couch, replaying the timeline, our marriage a decade of slow suffocation, his endless suspicions, the way he'd scroll through my phone like a detective in his own delusion. That trip to the coast with Mark wasn't infidelity, it was survival, a gasp of air in a drowning world. Blocking David was my line in the sand, a digital barricade to reclaim my sanity. And his response? He'd waited until I was 2 hours away, sipping wine with Mark under starlit dunes, to orchestrate the gutting of our shared life. Movers at dawn, boxes sealed with my heirloom china inside, sold off before I could blink. Revenge didn't ignite like a wildfire, it simmered, a slow poison I brewed in stolen moments. By day, I scraped together freelance gigs, ghostwriting for faceless executives who droned about success while I seethed over a laptop borrowed from Lena. The money trickled in, enough for a dingy studio downtown, walls thin as paper echoing the isolation I'd fled. But at night, I dove into the digital underbelly, hiring a shady PI named Rico through a burner app. "Dig deep," I told him, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. Bank records, mistresses, every skeleton. The reports came in fragments. David shacked up in a sleek condo paid for with our savings, already parading a new woman. Blonde, vapid, half his age. On Instagram stories I accessed via a fake account. He was rebuilding, brick by stolen brick, while I sifted through pawn shop ads for glimpses of my grandmother's silverware. The burden gnawed at me, a relentless hunger that warped everything. Lena noticed first. We'd always been close, trading secrets over late night ice cream since we were kids, dodging our father's rages. Now, her invitations to family dinners turned tense. "You're scaring Mom," she whispered one evening as I stabbed at a salad, my mind miles away, plotting how to mirror his emptiness. Mom, frail in her armchair, would pat my hand with eyes like shattered glass. "Let it go, Elena. He's gone." But letting go felt like surrender, like inviting him to dance on my grave. My obsession leaked into work. I'd miss deadlines, staring at spreadsheets that blurred into visions of David's smug face. Mark called once, his voice warm, tentative. "Come back to the coast, we can start fresh." I hung up, the phone heavy in my fist. Fresh? With what? My trust pulverized. No, Mark was a casualty now, collateral in the war David started. I blocked him too, the act a bitter echo of my fatal mistake. Months dragged on, the poison deepening its hold. Rico's intel painted David as untouchable, promotions at his firm, bought with embezzled funds from our joint ventures. I'd slaved over those business plans during our good years. He was golfing with partners, toasting deals laced with my sweat. The injustice festered, birthing fantasies that kept me up, slashing tires. Anonymous tips to his boss. Flames licking the edges of that pristine condo. But destruction tempted with its double edge. One wrong move, and I'd be the villain in Lena's eyes, the daughter who broke Mom's fragile heart. I tore between justice, a clean lawsuit, restitution through courts, and the raw urge to shatter him as he shattered me. In a fevered midnight, I drafted emails to his colleagues, anonymous barbs about his sticky fingers, but deleted them, fingers hovering over send like a loaded gun. "Is this you?" Lena asked after finding me curled on the bathroom floor, sobbing not from grief, but from the rage that left me hollow. Or is this him, winning again? The pursuit rippled outward, a toxic wave. Mom's health dipped. Doctor visits for stress. Her whispers blaming my haunted look. Lena pulled away, her texts curt, I love you, but you're drowning us all. Even strangers felt it. The barista at my corner cafe learned to brace for my sharp orders. My smiles brittle as cracked porcelain. Revenge shaped me into a shadow. Decisions filtered through its lens. Turning down a promotion, because it meant crossing paths with David's network, ghosting friends who dared mention moving on. It ate away, hollowing the joy from simple things. A sunset, a laugh. Replacing them with checklists of vendettas. Yet in the quiet erosion, a spark persisted, the memory of that empty house. The injustice that birthed this beast. I wouldn't stop. Not until he tasted the void. A year in, the poison had forged me into something lethal. Decisions no longer mine but extensions of the vendetta. The studio was a war room now. Walls pinned with timelines. Red string connecting dots from Rico's dossiers to public records I'd hacked via a cheap VPN. David's life bloomed in glossy detail, the blonde Tara. Now his fiancée, flaunting rings that screamed of my liquidated assets. His firm thrived, but cracks showed. Whispers of audits. Colleagues eyeing him sideways after anonymous leaks I'd seeded through burner emails. Justice. It was a coward's crutch. Destruction called louder. Its siren song promising the symmetry I craved, take everything, leave nothing. The turning point came unbidden, a jagged truth that nearly derailed me. Rico called late one rain-lashed night, his gravel voice cutting through static. Found something buried deep. Your boy's not just a thief, he's got priors. Assault on an ex, back in college. She dropped charges, but the files got photos. Bruises like yours would have been, if he'd ever laid hands. He emailed the scan, a grainy report, her statement blurred but damning. He said he'd take it all if I left. My stomach churned, not with shock but recognition. This wasn't anomaly, it was pattern. David as predator. Always one block away from unleashing. Tara's beaming posts flickered on my screen, oblivious, or perhaps willfully blind. For a splintered second, pity flickered. Should I warn her? Expose him before he gutted her too? The thought twisted like mercy, a hesitation that mocked my resolve. But then the empty house flashed. My china shattered in some estate sale. Mom's quilt pawned for his bar tabs. Pity curdled to fuel. No, she'd learn the hard way as I had. The truth didn't question revenge, it sanctified it, arming me with the blade of inevitability. I thanked Rico, hung up, and finalized the plan. Destruction it would be, pure, unyielding. The pursuit's toll mounted, a ledger of shattered bonds. Lena confronted me in a coffee shop that reeked of burnt beans, her face etched with exhaustion. Mom's in the hospital again. Panic attacks, Alina. She thinks you're going to end up like Dad, consumed. I laughed, a hollow bark that drew stares. Dad died swinging at shadows. I'm striking back. She left in tears, our sisterhood frayed to threads, her final text a plea. Don't become the monster. But monsters were made, not born, and David had cast the mold. Work crumbled. My editor fired me after a missed deadline citing owner liability. But I saw his influence. David's golf buddy, no doubt. Friends evaporated. Invitations drying up as my rants turned venomous. Even the city felt hostile, its bustle a reminder of his unchecked ascent. The burden was a constant companion, sleep fractured by dreams of empty rooms multiplying. My life, Lena's mom's, all hollowed by my crusade. Yet it drove me, sharpened my edges, turned grief to granite. I was no longer the wife he'd discarded. I was the storm he'd unleashed. The climax brewed in shadows, a confrontation scripted in solitude. I tracked him to a charity gala, irony thick as the champagne flutes. His firm sponsoring, David preening in a tuxedo sewn from my stolen threads. I slipped in under a borrowed gown, hair pinned like armor, Rico's forged invite my key. The ballroom glittered, laughter a facade over deals and deceptions. He stood center stage, arm around Tara, toasting, new beginnings, with a smirk that ignited the fuse. I waited in the wings, pulse a war drum, until he slipped to the balcony for a smoke. Old habit, my intel gold. The night air bit cold as I approached, heels silent on stone. David. His head snapped, cigarette dropping like a spent shell. Recognition dawned slow, then twisted to triumph. Elena, come to beg. No words wasted. I stepped close, voice ablade. You took my home, my life. Now I take yours. His laugh died as I pressed play on the hidden recorder in my clutch. Rico's montage audio of embezzled calls, photos of assaults, financial trails looping back to our drained accounts. Leaked to his boss's inbox that morning, viral by dawn. But I wasn't done. From my purse, a USB, proof of Tara's inheritance, funneled from my freelance residuals he'd siphoned pre-block. She'll find out tonight. And the movers. I traced them. Your new place. Trashed last week. Every piece you stole. Pawned back to me anonymously. Lies layered truth. The real gutting waited a hired crew. Midnight shadows. Stripping his condo bare while he schmoozed. His face drained to ash, eyes darting like cornered prey. You crazy bitch. He lunged, but I sidestepped, knee driving into his gut. A echo of self, defense classes born from his threats. He crumpled, gasping as security lights flickered distant. Tara's voice called from inside, laced with confusion. I leaned in, breath ghosting his ear. Empty feels familiar, doesn't it? I walked away as sirens wailed, his scream alerting guards, but too late. By morning, headlines screamed. XX Empire crumbles in scandal. Firm severed ties. Tara fled with the ring pawned for bail. His assets frozen in lawsuits I'd seeded through proxies. He ended up in a rented room, Echoes his only company, begging Lena for scraps she denied on my whispered urging. The revenge landed, a meteor's crater, but victory tasted like dust. Hollow as the house he'd left me. In the end, vengeance carves a throne from the bones of the innocent, but the crown weighs heavier than the empire it topples. Moral of the story: revenge devours the avenger whole, leaving only ashes where a life once burned.